Explore the history, relationships, expertise, and data that go into ensuring Stine growers get maximum yield potential. This is the Stine Seedcast. Here's your host, David Thompson.
Hello, and welcome to the Stine Seedcast. I'm your host, David Thompson, National Marketing and Sales Director for Stine Seed Company. We've got another great episode lined up with special guests, expert insights, and discussion on everything you need to know about maximizing yield potential. On today's episode, our special guest is Myron Stine, President of Stine Seed Company. Welcome back to the show, Myron.
Thank you, David.
So Myron's here to discuss an important milestone that we're excited to celebrate, the 45th anniversary of the Stine brand. As the son of company founder Harry Stine, Myron essentially grew up in the seed business. In today's episode, Myron's going to share some of his earliest memories of Stine Seed Company, how he started his career path in the organization, and what it means for us to celebrate 45 years of the branded business. So let's get started. Well, so Myron, first of all, how about a quick recap? I know you've been on the show before, but let's kind of give everybody a ground set. Talk about your history with the company and kind of your work path within Stine.
Yeah, so I started on the farm boy, loved the farm, loved equipment, and I did the farm work all through high school, all through college. Went to college for crop science. And at the time, I guess I felt I'd probably go into the research program because I had interest in that. And I had been on the farm, I had done some work in the research program. And when I got out of school, my father said that they had some open sales territories in different parts of the country. And because at that time, our company had purchased 9 other seed companies. So we had some opportunity. We had some open areas. And so I took one of those in Illinois. I actually tried to stay in Iowa, but they said no. And they sent me to Illinois, around Decatur, Illinois. So I started as a sales rep in the central part of Illinois. And after I did that for about 5 years, I then took a regional position, and I took care of Illinois and Wisconsin as a regional manager. At that time, we had 5 regions. Today, we have 40 regions. And then I eventually took the general manager position. I did that out of Illinois. And then eventually, I was asked to move back to Iowa. I'd been in Illinois for over 10 years at that point. And I moved back to Iowa, became the VP of the company. And then now I'm president of the brand. So I've gone through all the different levels. I haven't been a dealer, but I've
Right.
but I've done everything but a dealer. So yeah, that's my my adventures in Stine Seed Company.
So I guess I'm curious, when you moved to Illinois, took on that ISR role, you really had no prior sales experience, but you had all this experience about who Stine was as a company. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Looking back, it seems like a lot to bite off. Like, how did you approach that when you moved into that area?
Well, the company was very different at that time, and one thing I did do prior to that is I had attended some sales meetings. I had Doug Brower, who was a sales representative that's been in our company for quite some time. I spent time with him. He taught me some things. There were a couple other reps I spent time with. So I knew a little bit about what that position was supposed to do. And seed at that time, especially soybean seed, was simpler than what it is today.
Sure.
Because you didn't have the trait part in there. So not to say that it was an easy job, but there were fewer things to understand and fewer things to learn. And really what made you successful then was just having discipline and getting yourself out and doing the work.
So getting out, seeing dealers, getting out and prospecting just every day.
Yeah, we only had dealerships.
Yeah.
As a rep, I could not sell direct. I could sign a farmer up as a dealer, but really for me to maximize my time, I had to find a dealership that would resell the product.
So in the intro, we talked about the fact that, we're excited that this year's going to mark the 45th anniversary of Stine brand, and we know that the farm and some of the other aspects of the organization have been around longer than that. But when we talk about Stine brand, 45 years is pretty impressive. And as you tell your story, it recurs to me, you and the company have kind of grown up together through this whole process.
Yeah.
Are there things that you think about when you see our organization today? Do you look back and are there things that just strike you as, man, things have really, really changed?
Oh, very much so. Yeah, there's some things that have not changed, but definitely we are better, and we've taken everything that we did well back then and made it better and better. That's the best way to describe that. However, we've kept with the same values. Because I will tell you, when we started as a company, I like to say that there are some things that a seed company needs to bring to a farmer, and then there's some things that the farmer wants the seed company to bring to them. We had always been very, very good at bringing the things to the grower that they need, that we think are essential, and some companies don't do those things very well, and we have always done them very well. And still today, we do that same thing, and that's performance in our genetics. We think that's the low-hanging fruit for anybody, and so we still do that very, very well. So that has not changed. However, oh gosh, we have today we have 300 plus reps. Back when I was the company, we had 45 or something like that. So it was just very, very different. And back then, the trait part was not in soybean. So you're selling just conventional soybeans. There was more Ben Run. Frankly, as a seedsman, I don't want to say this. This sounds a little negative, but you're the bottom of the bucket. The chem people were above you. They had the big budgets, and when the farmer had a problem, they were always talking to the chem people. With the seed company, we were just kind of the guys at the bottom of the ladder, looking up, at everything else.
Yeah, there was. To your point, it seems like there was a perception that the crop protection side of the business was where all of the technology and all the advancement was, and seed guys, they just produce seed and put it in a bag and sell it.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't have big budgets, and today we don't have big budgets either. But back then, the chemistry side of agriculture was very valuable. It made some farmers, and some farmers went broke if they didn't use the right chemistry, and so it was a big deal, and so they were willing to pay huge dollars for that technology.
So, we talked about some of the changes and things, and one thing that I think has certainly changed in our industry in the last 45 years is that there are a lot fewer seed brands in the marketplace than there were, 45 years ago. Why do you think Stine Seed Company has been able to grow and succeed? Certainly not the largest, brand in the industry, but as you said, we've been from 45 reps to 300 and continuing to grow each and every year. How has our organization been able to sustain that growth over these last 45 years?
So our focus from day one has been on genetics and performance, and you could argue that, a seed company needs to sell more than just genetics and performance to be successful. But if you don't have those components as the core of your company, if you're focused on customer service, you're focused on having a beautiful production facility, or having pretty bags, or having great trips, if you're focused on something other than the core component of having the best product, which is being the most profitable for your customer, you're going to miss the boat, and you're not going to have longevity. We have always had that as our core meaning, and I think that has, over the years, allowed us to continue to grow. We have also had a focus on keeping our overhead low. I think that some companies don't do that, and at the end of the day, you have to look at your overhead and say, how does that help our customer? We've done a very good job there. So just because of all those things, it's given us longevity. And even today I was talking to my father about the future of our brand. And we don't see why you just couldn't keep this brand going on for quite some time. I mean, dare I say forever, but quite some time. There's nothing that is really holding us back.
And I think that's kind of the trick to the whole thing, because what you're talking about is some would say basic blocking and tackling, to use that term, and yet so many people overlook it. And it's certainly not as exciting as flashy facilities and
that's right.
other things. And so it's always probably a little bit better for show if you have a nice new building and if you have, lots of different people and technologies that you're using. But if you're not doing that foundational work that you're describing, it's kind of window dressing, I guess.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So when you think about where the industry is today, and we've talked about some of the changes, certainly that we've seen just in our time, how do you think Stine is positioned today compared to when, let's say when you started, in the 90s? What's our position of strength now relative to what it was in the 90s?
Like I said, we still have our core strengths. Yep. We're still focused on bringing brand new genetics out of our breeding entities. When I look at the market, the farms are getting bigger. And I guess when we started, you could argue we were too focused on genetics. We were too focused on performance. We probably weren't doing enough in customer service. We probably weren't doing enough in agronomy. And today, though, as the farms get bigger, that customer service and agronomy component become less important because, big farms, they do it themselves. They're really looking for a good genetic supplier. We've got that handled. We're exceptional at being a genetic supplier to a farm. So I think because we know that business very, very well, that gives us a promising future for the larger farmers that we're getting. At the same time, though, you still have the smaller grower out there, whether they just don't want to grow or, for whatever reason, they're the size they are. Some of them are very successful. They need that agronomy support. They need that customer service. And we have an emphasis to be first in class with agronomy support and customer service. So I feel like our company is going to have everything we need for that smaller grower and everything we need for that larger grower. And that larger grower, like I said, that market's growing every day or every season is probably the best way to put that. So we have a promising future because we're set up in those two areas. And then the last thing is we're cost effective. I would tell you that we're a lean company, and we've done a good job of staying that way. And as we grow, we're not having overhead costs, which I would consider wasteful and unreasonable and unpurposeful for a seed company.
Well, and that's a good point because that gives you the strength in the organization because frankly, the seed business is not unlike farming. There's boom and bust cycles, and every time that happens, consolidation happens and brands go away. And one of the beautiful parts about our organization, I think, is keeping that overhead low and being very efficient at what we do. Always exciting when we think about the fact we've continued to grow over these decades, and really, for all intents and purposes, layoffs are not in our vocabulary because we grow smart and we continue to just kind of grow where needed. And
it's never happened.
right, we just don't have the ups and downs because we just kind of continue to grow it, but we don't outpace where our growth is, it seems like.
Right.
So, the breeding programs that we have access to, again, that's been a strength, is our ability to get really, really good genetics into the marketplace. Compared to over the course of time, over the last 45 years, what's different about the breeding programs? We talked about the similarity being they're still focused on yield, still focused on finding the best products. What are they doing today that might be different than what they were doing starting out?
It's like anything. The breeding programs just have more technology. They have better combines. They have better technology to get their data in a more timely fashion. They have better technology to review that data. They're bigger. That's one thing. They have figured out how to grow the program and be just as efficient. So those are the big differences I've seen there. And then, frankly, they've been very successful, just both in providing Stine brand with genetics, but also on the licensing side, and that's allowed them to get bigger too.
And when you say bigger, I mean just in general terms, is that on an order of double, triple,
Well, a good way to look at it is, I believe they'll have between 170 to 185 elite locations. I remember when they had 40. And I keep tabs on the breeding side because I was involved with some of that, when I was younger. And I enjoy watching it and seeing it. So I don't work directly in it, but I keep tabs on it. And I have been just flabbergasted when I started to see the number of locations they have where they're testing these new products. It's quite extensive.
But I think that's also the other part of one other part of the beauty of the system that's been built there is how flat the layers are. I mean, we work in the same office, and from day to day, I'll see, corn research people in your office, soybean research people, farm manager, the finance team, whatever. I mean, everything is intertwined in a way that probably isn't the way with a lot of other organizations.
Right.
So.
Yeah, you can keep tabs on other areas which you may not work directly in, but it's fun to see that, fun to see what other people are doing.
So, switching gears a little bit, I want to talk about, since we're talking about 45 years of the Stine brand, I think that's also a little bit of a, feather in the cap. Great brands come and go over time. And Stine has been fortunate to be operating kind of under the same brand name, under the same owner for 45 years. Curious as to what you think, what value does that provide, the fact that, again, still the same brand as when we started?
Well, so today we're the fourth largest soybean brand in the U.S., and I think if we stick with with what we started with back in 1979, with the same principles and values, and if we keep that hooked to the brand, it's obviously worked. It's been the right thing for that brand, and I see no reason for us to change or do anything differently. If it's not broke, don't try to fix it. So I think that's the future of our brand. That's who we are. We're going to stick with it. Over the years, we've been criticized that we're not marketing focused enough, and that's not who we are. It's true. We could have been more marketing focused 10, 20 years ago, but we chose not to do that. We chose to stick with what we know and what we do best, and it's working. It's working, and it's the strategy that's done well in the long haul.
Certainly seems to be so far. So,
Yeah.
Talking about, and again, I've been here for 25 years. one of the things I've seen that is a common thread that runs throughout this organization is people, great people, and I know something that you talk a lot about is work culture within an organization. Talk a little bit about why. I mean, I guess what your thoughts are and how you think that maybe benefits us in our organization.
Well, so I have a couple philosophies, so to speak, that I stick to, and the first thing is that, like, even with myself, when I'm looking at people to work with me, I will go and figure out a specific job and figure out, what it takes to get that job done. And typically I can always find somebody that can do that job way better than me. And so I think we've done a good job of that. So I think we've put some good people on in parts of our company that excel at what they're doing. And then I think the people that work above them and with them that have to, watch that job get done, recognize when the job's not getting done. That component's there too. But then the next thing with that is I think that we do a good job of being focused on character with our team. I think if you look at the team of people we have on the marketing and sales side, they have phenomenal character. I think character is more important with a person than intelligence, than in anything. You can have someone very intelligent and very knowledgeable that has bad character, and things go south quickly. And you can have someone with really good character, and you could say, well, they're not super intelligent on this one particular topic, but over time, they'll probably figure it out, and they'll do a really, really good job with it. And so I've always had that philosophy that character is important. And yes, with work culture, today, if you come to our office building, over COVID, we gave everybody the choice. If they wanted to, we gave them the right equipment where they could work from home. And I was surprised nobody wanted to go and work from home. And I think some of that's because we have a good work culture within our office that's providing the sales support to our salespeople. If you look at our management team, we don't have a high turnover of people on our management team. We don't have people saying, okay, I'm leaving Stine because I don't like this company. We've had some people leave, and maybe that was a good thing. Maybe we worked with them and thought they should be leaving. But we don't have a lot of people jumping ship, and I think that shows also that's a good variable to use to measure how your work culture is within your company, even out in the field. So I think we tackle all those areas quite well.
And in the broader picture, even looking at a lot of other departments, one of the things that always struck me is the longevity of people in our organization. As you go around throughout the departments, it's many people measure their tenure there in decades, and more than one decade. So there must be something to that people have bought in to a process and a system, and what Harry has built and what the rest of the team is trying to accomplish. So pretty exciting.
Yeah, Harry has definitely, Harry on his side, he's in a different, for me, I feel like sometimes he's in a different area than we are on the sales and marketing side, but he has some people, you look at Chuck Hansen, he has been able to find some people out there that are just first class, get the job done better than anybody else. That's just one example. So you see that throughout the organization. So it's not just sales and marketing. It's everywhere.
So talking about you, one of the things that I think is great about you is you really are at home on the road sitting across the table from our customers, hearing what they have to say. I guess tell me a little bit about why you choose to spend your time doing that.
Okay, well, the number one reason is, as far as desk work, I am the slowest, most incompetent person out there when it comes down to desk work.
That's a brutally honest answer.
Yes,
right
yes. I think you would agree. I think you've seen me in action. So thank you. But I'm a firm believer that if someone in my position is not out in the field talking to our customers, you're not going to have a clue as to what you need to be doing if you're making changes or making adjustments in our company. And so what I like to do, you're right, you're spot on. What I like to do is get out there and talk to larger producers, whether they're on the East Coast or in the northern areas or the south, just all over the entire U.S. I'd make some trips to some of our international business also, but there in the U.S., that's my passion. Our U.S. business is my passion, and I feel like I have to be everywhere and engaged with farmers just to understand what does our company need to be doing to continually provide what they need.
Well, and I think that's great. And I'll tell a quick story. We were at a grower event this winter, and I had a grower who commented to me, said, what I love about your organization is, a couple of years ago I had Myron Stine sitting at my kitchen table. And he said, I'll tell you this, and I won't say the name of a company, but he said, I don't have Mr. fill in the blank from a large multinational company. That guy doesn't exist. So he's not at my kitchen table talking to me. And so I think that's tremendous that you're willing to go out there and talk to customers, because you're right. That's how we get feedback. That's how we learn how we can better service these customers that we have. So looking back, again, we're talking about 45 years of the brand. You've been here since 1994. As it relates to the branded business, and your tenure here since 94, which would now be what, 30 years?
29 years.
29 years. Are there milestones for you that stand out in your mind over that 30 years that you've been involved with the branded business?
Yeah, so, we've gone from being a regional company. When I started, we were a regional company. We very much functioned like a regional company, and we were just in the heart of the Corn Belt. Today, we're an international brand. We're an international company. So seeing that has been, it's neat to look at that. Probably the biggest thing for me is when I just look at what the brand's done as far as climbing its position against all the other brands. Because 10 years ago, we were number 7 as far as a brand, maybe number 8. And today we're number 4. And so the milestones that I see are just the big ones when I look at the big 50,000-foot picture over a 10 to 20-year period, and just how we're growing. And we're just slowly growing, and we're doing it cost effectively, and we're doing it without a lot of turbulent, crazy things happening as we're growing. And that's what we need to do. And we need to keep on going we need to be number 1 someday. And that's a long ways away, because the number 1 brand out there is Pioneer, which is a great brand, wonderful brand. But we need to figure out, how do we be better than them? And right now, I'd say in a number of things, we are better than them. And we need to just exploit that, keep working hard. And, competition makes the world go around.
Mm-hmm.
And so then maybe when we're number one, then we'll have to figure out something different to do. I don't know.
The next hill to climb.
Yeah.
So, so I guess just curious, from your seat, what do you wish people knew about Stine brand and the seed business that maybe they don't know as well as you do?
That's the obvious. We can statistically show you that you take our Enlist E3 lineup, for instance, and you give a grower 5 lines out of our catalog, and then a grower can use 5 lines out of somebody else's catalog, and some of those likely may be licensed from the same breeding entity we're licensing from, and we're going to average 2 bushel better on the farm with our 5 lines relative to the other 5 lines. And we're going to win 73% of the time. I wish I could show that to everybody. I wish I could sit every grower down and say, look, we have a better mousetrap. 2 bushel per acre, which is $20 to $30 more in your pocket per acre, is a big deal, and we have that. It's our system. It's nothing that we're doing that's outlandish. It's our system is geared to continually carry the newest material and the best material, and the way we pick our lineup, we think is better than what our competition does. And I wish I had a way to really show every grower out there. And it's tough. It's tough to show them that performance gain that they would have and the benefits to it.
Well, and maybe tough, but more than that, I'd say, do you think it seems deceptively simple?
Yes.
Like they think, well, it can't be that easy.
Yeah, that's right. Yet I will tell you, you asked me earlier about, what keeps, why is the brand still surviving and doing well? That's one of the main reasons, because that's our core value, and we've done it right. We've done that well. But it's hard to see. A grower has a hard time seeing a couple bushel advantage. You have to look at the big picture. And furthermore, I said we only win 73% of the time. The rest of the time we're not winning. So that's hard. That's tough too.
Yep. And logic isn't assumed in every case.
That's right.
When you're so as we kind of wind down here, we're thinking about the past 45 years. I just am curious. We talked about a lot of things here, but is there anything that stands out in your mind that you'd say would be the biggest change that our brand has undergone or experienced in that 45-year window?
Biggest change? Wow, that's a tough one. And we still have the same sales and marketing guy, which is you. Hasn't changed.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, that hasn't changed. Boy, I see nothing, aside from just scaling up what we know works. That's all we've done. We've taken a system that we know works and just made that bigger, and it's worked. Some things don't work when you make them bigger, and in business, and ours has worked well. Even our production system, which I think is very novel. We've simply scaled that up and made that work. So that's been our biggest change, our biggest contributor to growing the brand.
Yes, so I'm wondering if maybe the answer here is the secret to our success is remaining true to the core of what made us successful in the first place.
Yep, we haven't changed that. We have, aside from we have not made big changes from who we were back in 1979. Aside from the addition of what I would say is a world-class agronomy support department, and then the focus on customer service. And we've always had customer service, but now I will tell you, we started this a couple years ago on saying, okay, we're going to be number one. And I was just in a meeting, and I had a number of agronomy staff and salespeople acknowledge that we were the only company that was working with the farmers in the area. We were dotting our I's and crossing our T's when it came down to the replant situation they had. We were going out with the grower and making sure that the grower was taken care of, and the other companies were not. And we had numerous explanations of other companies that were not doing that, and that makes you feel good when you hear that.
Yeah, and maybe that's a great testament to the service side of the equation, because someone said, well, it's real easy to look like a hero when everything's going well, but it's when things go badly that's when your mettl's tested, and that's when people remember who you are based on some of the struggles that you go through together.
Right.
And that's where you prove your reputation. So as we close here, we're thinking about 45. So obviously 5 years from now will be a golden anniversary, 50 years. Where do you hope that we are as a sales organization 5 years from now?
We think we can be a strong number 3 in the branded side, in the brand position for the U.S. I see some of our other overseas activities growing also. So we'll be a strong number 3, and at that time, that means we'll be looking to see how do we become number 2, and that'll be a whole new adventure to get that done.
Pedal down. Yep. Well, awesome, Myron. Again, thanks for coming on, joining us on the podcast today, and talking about your story and kind of joining us as we set off on this 45th anniversary celebration in 2024 season. Appreciate your input, and thanks for being on the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, that's our time today. I want to thank our guests and our listeners for joining us on another episode of the Stine Seedcast. We'll be back again soon with more expert interviews and insights about all things Stine. And to never miss an episode, subscribe to the Stine Seedcast wherever podcasts are found.
Subscribe to the Stine Seedcast wherever podcasts are found. To learn more about Stine and its elite corn and soybean genetics, visit stineseed.com. Stine has yield.